Yo, what's going on? What's going on, Ishan? How you doing, man? Good stuff, man. Glad to hear you're doing good. Doing good, man. Just hanging out. It's my weekend finally, so I'm just hanging out at the house, chilling. Not too much going on today, so yeah, I'm just resting for the most part, just hanging out here. You know, what time is it for you right now? I'm wondering just because I know that there's some folks that are like in different time zones. You have an exam after day after tomorrow. Oh, damn. Hey, well, I wish you the best of luck. I hope that things go well with it. Yams, I know it's already coming up to that time of year. We're already at the end of February, jumping into, or about to jump into March. So, damn, it's 3:52 a.m. for you right now. God, holy moly. What are you doing up right now? Did you stay up late or are you up early? I'm assuming staying up late. That's wild. We'll sleep at 5. You're crazy, man. I'm hoping you do get some good rest. When you do, I'm not sure what time you have to wake up, but best of luck to you, man. That's crazy. I've been staying up a little later than usual over the past, like maybe like week or so. I remember there was a good string of time. Um, there was a good string of time where I was like going to sleep pretty on a pretty good damn schedule, like going to sleep pretty early and getting up early, like how I usually need to do. But this past week I've been going to sleep late and getting not much sleep, and that's why last night I ended up going to sleep and I slept for like 10 hours or something. I was exhausted. But today, yeah, I wanted to go ahead and do possibly the live reading for the Ninth Light novel, just because I still haven't read it, because I've been waiting to do the the live stream possibly on it. And yeah, so I wanted to do that today. I'm not sure if you've read it at all, or if there's other people that have not read it at all either. But I wanted to do it because I've been procrastinating doing it for such a long time because I've been waiting to do the stream for it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and just do it today. Not all of it, but yeah, I wanted to just do at least some of it and just start reading it. But yeah, that's what I kind of wanted to jump into. Should be good though. I'm hoping that it's. I know the Eighth Light novel was a damn good read. I enjoyed the heck out of it. There's a couple of people that commented and stuff and that were talking saying that they liked it, but they didn't like it as much as the other books, just because it wasn't like the Eighth Light novel wasn't like super like adolescent syndrome kind of heavy. But yeah. Oh, you haven't? Have you seen the movie at all? Because it's stuff that happens like after the movie, so I don't want you to end up jumping into it if you haven't seen the stuff that happened in the movie. Oh, gee, dang it. I'm gonna hop on in it right now just to kind of see what I got going on. I should have read the Eighth Light novel again before I even did this because it's been a little bit since I've read the Eighth Light novel, and I feel like maybe I might have forgotten. No, I feel like it's still somewhat fresh in my head, but I know that there's going to be a few things that might slip past my mind, and I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about that. Hold on. I'm going to start it off in just a second here. I'm excited for it though, just because the way that it ended off in the Eighth Light novel was pretty good. I enjoyed the heck out of that. You have seen the movie? Okay, not bad. Yeah, good stuff. I'm not sure if you read the Eighth Light novel because this is the ninth one, of course. The eighth one, of course, ends up taking place after the movie, and then this is the ninth one that happens, of course, after it. So there might be some stuff that you might not have seen already, so it might be like spoiler territory for you, or like it might not make a ton of sense because of the fact that, the Eighth Light novel you might not have read before. But yeah, like I said, that's definitely up to you if you want to continue. But I'm gonna continue to, run through it and read it just because I've been waiting too long to freaking end up reading this dang thing. So I'm like, I'm gonna do it today. I'm tired of waiting. I'm gonna jump on into it. But yeah, we'll go ahead and see what's going on. So just kind of refreshing my memory, at least, the end of Volume 8 that happens, getting into spoiler territory right off the jump, pretty much, is that Mai Sakurajima ended up graduating from high school. So that was really cool. So she's done with high school now, like kind of waiting to be able to go to university, but she is um, waiting essentially for Sakata to finish up his high school stuff before she jumps into university, I believe, because she's waiting. She wants to go to university with him. So she was just going to take, I believe, a break, like a year break, wait for Sakata to finish up his school stuff and graduate as well, and then they're gonna both go to university at the same time. And I remember that they wanted to go. They're gonna go to the same one. Like I said, they're gonna go together. And then at that time too, I believe they had Shoko. She ends up popping up back into the story, and I can't. I think she. Oh yeah, she has to go away, which was pretty sad. I thought that she would might, maybe might pop in as a character here and there and stuff. But Kid Shoko, she ends up letting them know that she has to move away. I can't remember where, but it's pretty far from where they currently stay. So she's not going to really be able to see Sakata or any of the other characters really again, at least for a good while. She's going to try to keep in touch, I guess, by like sending letters and stuff. But she's going away pretty much. And I believe Sakata was like at a beach, or I'm pretty sure he was at the beach when that stuff happened, and he was like watching her like plane kind of go away. And then that's when Sakata ran into the little Mai. So that's where I believe this story ends up kicking off from. So we're gonna hop on into that. I'm just making sure that my memory's refreshed, and just context for anybody who's watching right now, Ishan as well. If you're not like totally caught up, if you haven't read that book from Volume 8. But yeah, we're gonna kick it off. So all right. So what could this mean? The waves lapped pleasantly on Shichirigahama Beach. The wind still whistled in his ears. A voice mingled with those sounds. "Who are you, mister?" The speaker was a girl in a red leather knapsack. So this is, of course, the little Mai. She was looking up at him waringly, not anxious but assured. Sakata was far less assured for two good reasons. First, this girl was very familiar. She looked just like the famous childhood actress Mai Sakurajima. But even more unsettling, this was the second time that it actually happened. I believe the last time was when they were actually in Volume 8. It happened in a dream or something like that. So Yeah, he dreamed about it once before, a strange dream that had really struck with him, and he was wondering and stuff. And I remember I think he talked to Futaba about it or something like that. And now the same events were happening, but in actual reality. So this is not a dream. And his head was too preoccupied with a strange sense of deja vu to figure out how to respond to this kid's question. He wound up saying exactly what he'd said in the dream. I guess I've got one foot in the door. To a girl her age, high school students did look awfully grown up. When he was her age, he'd have called anyone in a uniform Mister too. Just now that he was in high school, he definitely didn't feel grown up at all. Would he ever? Right, so he's just kind of feeling some type of way right now, just kind of freaking out at the whole situation, seeing this little Mai Sakurajima. All right, says, my mom said I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, sorry. She bobbed her head politely and turned her back on him. Where's your mom? He looked around, but the nearest other person was a good 30 yards away, and that was an older dude with a dog, paying them no attention, strolling along the length of the beach. He'd heard him, but wasn't answering, pretending not to hear. You alone? Apparently her mother's rule was ironclad. She'd been looking west at Enoshima, but when she turned east toward Kamakura and Hayama, he caught a glimpse of a frown. He looked left and right, himself wondering again what exactly was going on. The first phrase that came to mind was adolescent syndrome. Most of the world scoffed at the concept, dismissing it as little more than go to the next page. Little more than a superstition, just some nonsense made up online, not something anyone really believed. But Sakata had a good reason to take it seriously. He had first-hand experience with people turning invisible, predicting the future, splitting into two, or swapping bodies with their sisters. He'd lived it, so of course, referencing all the stuff that he's gone with experienced with all of his friends and stuff. And these experiences included one girl who was sometimes in high school and sometimes in college. Mai was in high school, but it wasn't necessarily surprising that she'd suddenly turned into an elementary school kid. Personally, he preferred the older version of Mai and hoped she'd go back to normal soon. There was one thing that bothered him, something his friend Ryo Futaba has said. Returning to the past is really problematic. He seemed to recall her saying that right around the time the Petit Devil Kohai's mischief ended up happening. Sakata hadn't really followed the logic, but if Ryo said a thing, it definitely was true. So yeah, that's kind of trippy, or at least in my mind, whenever I saw the cover and stuff of the Knapsack Kid and seeing the little Mai Sakurajima and stuff, I always thought of it being not, I guess, like not like a or not, yeah, not exactly like a Ryo Futaba situation, but I always thought of it as like, okay, there was two of them, like this Mai Sakurajima, this little one is separate from the older Mai Sakurajima, so they were able to, like, I guess, coexist, at the same time and stuff. Um, but it very well could be, after reading this a little bit, it very well could be maybe a situation where this is the actual Mai Sakurajima, and maybe she just like shrunk down or whatever and like became kid-like. I'm not sure why it would happen, but that's, like I said, that's very well could be the case. That's another possibility. All right. So he seemed to recall her saying that around the time the Petit Devil Kohai's mischief began, Sakata hadn't really followed the logic, but if Ryo said a thing, it was definitely true. With Shoko Makinohara, she'd been known to grow up, but if the kid standing next to him was really Mai, then she'd gotten small, which could be very problematic. She must have sensed his eyes on her. The kid glanced up at him like she had something to say, but nothing came out, nor did she move to leave at all. She just stood there at a loss, waiting for him to say something. Are you lost? He asked, the first thing on his mind. She jumped. Clearly he'd guessed right. No. She insisted, glaring at him, that same grumpy look modern Mai often gave him, and that made him break out in a smile. Where is this? She asked, like she was rebuking that grin. I thought you couldn't talk to strangers. Fine then. Even grumpier, she turned back on him again and started walking toward Enoshima. You're on Shichirigahama, uh, he called after her. She stopped. He waited till she turned back, then added, but actually it isn't even one ri. Don't know what? Waited till she turned back, then added, but actually it isn't even one ri. Oh, okay. And still no reaction, she just kept looking right at him, without so much as a word. I go to school here. Minagahara names Sakata. He pointed up at the school building, belatedly introducing himself. Now I'm not a stranger, right? He blinked, eyes wide, but surprise soon gave way to a smile. A peal of happy, childish laughter echoed across the sky. The sound of good health and good times, the sort of laugh that made you feel glad to be alive. But the clouds hanging over Sakata's heart remained. No rays of light hit his face. The reason was all too clear. He had no idea who this girl could be. When she stopped laughing, he asked, "What's your name?" Getting right to the point. Her lips pursed, and she blinked up at him. "You don't know me? That's why I'm asking." I'm, she began. Sakata, a voice behind him calling his name, a voice he'd know anywhere and could never get enough of. Surprised, he swung around. He found, uh, dang, my bad, I got distracted by something. Surprised, he swung around. He found Mai standing 10 yards off in her Minagahara school uniform, 5'5", a little tall for a girl. She had one hand up, shielding her hair from the wind, and the other one holding a cardboard tube with her diploma inside. This was Mai, as he'd always known her. She picked her way across the sand toward him. When he said nothing, she raised an eyebrow. "Surprised to see me?" she teased. Mai, an obvious question, but he asked anyway. "I did not leave you here waiting so long you forgot me." She was close enough now to reach out and flick his forehead. Her voice, her gestures, the tone she used to tease him. No doubt about it, this was Mai Sakurajima. So yeah, that's weird. So she got, okay, yeah, I was just about, my question is about to be answered, I'm pretty sure, in this next little passage. You really are her. Who else would I be? But a second ago I was talking to Mini Mai. A what? She blinked at him, baffled. "Look, she's right over." He turned back to the knapsack kid. Huh? There was no sign of her. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. I was like, okay, so now that Big Mai showed up, she's just gone now. I was wondering if like she was still there for whatever reason, or the fact that the Big Mai is now there, she just kind of disappears. Yeah, okay, so it might be the situation where like Mai is small, like there's not two separate ones or whatever. I don't know. It feels kind of like the Rio Futaba situation in a little bit of a way, but maybe it's not. Like I don't know. I'm trying to think like how that even worked out in the Rio Futaba situation. I think it was like you couldn't find them in both places at the same time or something along those lines. This one might be the same type of situation because as soon as Big Mai is there, the little Mai just went away. But you never know. Or maybe this Mai is the actual like she changed from that little Mai to the Big Mai, but they were in two different places it seems, so it's kind of a little bit of a weird scenario. All right, so there was no sign of her. He looked left, then right, then did a 360 turn, scanning the entire beach. Nothing. Tiny footprints were still there in the sand. They stopped where she'd been standing, right next to him. No tracks leading away, like she'd vanished into thin air. Well, damn. Sakata, Mai, when you came up, did you see a little girl in a red knapsack? When he turned around, she'd been a good 10 yards off. She'd had a full view, but he had a feeling he wouldn't get the answer he was looking for. Her confusion made that pretty clear that they'd been on different pages since she arrived, but he had to be sure. "I didn't know," she said, perplexed. Yep, that was the last thing he wanted to hear. "You're sure?" "You were alone from the time I reached the beach until the moment I spoke to you. No wiggle room." She was being as detailed as possible and telling the truth as she saw it. No need to obfuscate anything. That's quite a word. Obfuscate. Damn it. That's a little bit hard to pronounce. "What's going on?" she asked, frowning at him. "Like I said, I was here waiting for you, and a kid came running up who looked just like you did back in your child actress years. Like, yeah, tall." He held out a hand just above his waist. "You're sure it was me?" "Well, as sure as I can be." It wasn't like he remembered exactly what she looked like back then, but she vanished when you got here. They'd exchanged a handful of words. She sure hadn't seemed like an illusion. He scanned the beach again. So did Mai. No little knapsack kids anywhere. "Is this adolescent syndrome?" Mai asked. Sakata glanced back at her. He moved close enough to touch, looking her right in the eye. "What? Are you doing all right, Mai? Is something wrong?" That's like my first question too. I'm like, okay, since it possibly is adolescent syndrome, at least most likely it's like the only kind of explanation we got here. Some type of adolescent syndrome. what's going on with Mai then? Is she having some sort of problem? Is she like wanting to be a child again? Or I don't know what's going on that is causing for something like that to possibly happen. So, yeah, we'll see what's going on. He put his hands on the shoulders of her uniform, feeling her under his palms. He slid them down her arms to her elbows as if tracing her outline. And then there was a sharp pain in his foot. Ow, ow, my, that hurt. She ground her heel harder. Don't stroke people's arms without warning, she said, brushing his hands away. Should I have made it a grope? Ow. What is wrong with this guy? More grinding? I'm just dandy, she said. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Like she had no idea why he'd been worried at all. If I could say, or I could ask you the same thing, she added, shooting him a look of concern. Well, my foot hurts. I mean it. She moved her foot, but pinched his cheek instead. I've got nothing going on that could kickstart adolescent syndrome either, other than exam stress and fatigue, I guess. He gave her a sidelong glance, being very obvious. So you're blaming me. Okay, yeah, so that, of course, is definitely, I guess, an explanation too, possibly, or it could be something to do with him. I would never. Here I am trying to get into the same school as you for you, and I just thought that maybe you deserve a reward. College is for you, Sakata, my side. Um, College is for you, Sakata, my side. So I don't know what kind of thing Sakata might be going through. I guess that would cause for like a little Mai to pop up. I mean, it's a little sus, but I mean, he's expressed it, and I highly doubt it's anything sus like that. I'm just wondering, like, what exactly is it? Like, what is he going through, or what is happening, or whatever that's causing for a young Mai to pop up out of nowhere like that? Yeah, that's strange. Um, then acting like he'd left her no choice, she handed him her cell phone. It was already in camera mode with the sea behind them. She put her shoulder to his. Was that a prompt for a selfie? To mark the occasion? All right then, he said. He held his arms out, getting them both in the frame and Enoshima in the far corner. Say cheese. But just as he pushed the shutter, he felt something soft on his cheek. A sweet scent wavered over, or wafted over. An instant later, he heard the click of the camera, then it was over, and Mai snatched the phone away. She pulled up the photo, mirth in her eyes. There was no mistaking that glee of successful prank. Alright, so he leaned over her shoulder and saw his own face, looking startled by the kiss on his cheek. He looked magnificently dumb, and he didn't mind at all. The way Mai blushed slightly was too adorable for anything else to matter. Wipe that smirk off your face. If this photo ever gets out, the media will lose their minds. Should I delete it now? Mai asked, moving away from the surf. Print it out first and give me a copy, Sakata said, catching up. Never. Aw. So you'd put it on your wall. So if Kaide saw it, I'd be mortified. Would you now? Absolutely. Her tone suggested that was the end of the topic, but as they reached the stairs leading up from the beach, she took his hand almost. She was only holding on his ring finger and pinky. Started climbing. That reminds me, Sakata. Hmm? There's something I'd like you, or someone I'd like you to meet. Who and when? Now. She ignored the other question. The light turned green just as they reached the top. The walk lights on Route 134 infamously stayed red forever, so Sakata moved to cross, but Mai stopped him. This way, she said, pulling him to the right, toward a parking lot with a view of the ocean. And summer beachgoers kept this lot full, but it was March 1st, and the lingering winter chill left it virtually deserted. God, yeah, I could only imagine how cold it is. Yeah, I remember I went to the beach last year. Yeah, last year, around kind of like this time of year, and it was pretty freaking cold too around this time of year. There were only a couple of cars here and there. Someone stood next to a navy blue hybrid. She wore a dark jacket and a tight skirt that came below the knees. Definitely a formal look, almost a suit, like a mother would wear to her daughter's graduation, which was exactly what she was. Ah, so it's Mai's mom? As Sakata and Mai approached, she spotted them. Her eyes locked on Sakata. He was instantly nervous. He'd seen the lady in the parking lot before. Mai's mother crossed her arms, waiting. A steely glint lit up her eyes. Okay, so Mai's mom is here now. That's pretty interesting. I was wondering at one point when we would actually see Mai's mom again. I did something like not that long ago that was kind of talking about it in some fashion with Mai's mom, kind of along the lines of like, as far as what we know of Mai's mom, she wasn't like super great of a person. She was kind of a shitty mother for stuff that she did with Mai Sakurajima, kind of using her and stuff. And yeah, I was wondering like when is she gonna pop up? Is there gonna be some sort of resolution as to what was going on between Mai and her mom? Are they gonna get back on good terms, or yeah, what is excuse me, dang. But yeah, are they gonna kind of, bury the hatchet, or is Mai's mom going to apologize to Mai for everything that she kind of did and stuff? And like I said, end up being on good terms at some point. Um, and I know that they kind of showed her in the Dreamy Girl movie too, at the end of it when she was kind of distraught with the whole Mai Sakurajima, dying at that point in time. But yeah, like I know that she didn't really get to properly meet Mai's mom at that point because I think that was what was going on there in the movie, and then the first time he ended up meeting him, it was like in that circumstance with Mai being, like kind of not existing at that point, so she didn't really get to meet him properly. He was more of just like an awkward encounter. Yeah, definitely interesting to see, and looking forward to seeing how they kind of interact here and what her kind of reaction is going to be to the situation since they've been dating for some time. Um, all right. A steely glint lit up her eyes. He'd been given no time to prepare, completely blindsided. Oh, wait, hold up. Guy. Okay, yeah, I went forward. He'd been given no time to prepare, completely blindsided. He'd been told she was asking to meet him, but he would much rather have known in advance that was happening today. Knowing Mai, she had likely withheld that information on purpose. He clearly had no intention of releasing his hand and pulled him gently over to her mother, and he saw her mother's eye glance down, taking note of that. This is my boyfriend, Sakata Asasagawa, Mai said. Then she turned to him. This is I'm her mother. Sakata Asasagawa, I assure you we're keeping things very chaste, or chaste. Um, he bowed his head. I'm aware. I had my people look into it. When the media circus started, her tone was perfectly pleasant, but the content was mildly alarming. Her tone was, sorry. What exactly had her people investigated? What? Weirdly, he found himself not minding much. It was exactly how Mai Sakurajima's mother should act. He would have found it weirder if she hadn't looked into him. Any celebrity mom would, just to make sure that she's safe and not getting into anything with any weirdos. Definitely understandable. My daughter put you through quite a lot. Hmm? This, however, caught him off guard enough that he let it show. She didn't bat an eye. Either she wasn't that interested in him, or she was deliberately ignoring his reaction. Her expression never changed, and he couldn't get a read on which. You haven't had any reporters sniffing around you? Nobody taking pictures? Not that I'm aware of. Maybe someone had taken some photos without his noticing, but he couldn't really speak to that. Good, she said with a hint of relief. He glanced at her watch. I'd better go. Without waiting for Mai's answer, she opened the car door and sat down. Before she closed the door, she looked up at Mai. If you take after me, you're no judge of men. Don't let him cheat on you. Of all things to say, Sakata had no idea how to respond. Not a concern, Mai said, not even meeting her mother's gaze. You're very confident. I picked him carefully. Uh, that's super cute. Alright, she'd certainly spent a full month testing him after he asked her out. And I've got him well trained, she said. Mai's eyes glanced his way. He considered barking, but the look but the look in her eyes was warning him not to do anything stupid, so he held his tongue. Best way to prove he was trained was to not embarrass her here. You say that, but I bet you're using work as an excuse to leave him to his own devices. This lady knew her daughter well. Well, Mai flinched, but she soon recovered. I make a point of calling him regularly when I'm on location. Her mother was having none of that. Her gaze turned back to Sakata. Can I call you Sakata? Please? She's a handful, but try to treat her right. Um, once more, not at all. Once more, not at all what he'd anticipated. He'd imagined she'd be against their relationship on principle, and he didn't know what to say. I'll do my best. He managed, but she'd already shut the door, put her seatbelt on, and started the engine. So she likely didn't even hear it. She switched her blinker on and pulled away. The hybrid engine barely made a whisper. Once mom's car was out of sight, they started walking back to the light, or walking back to the light at Route 30 and 134. Naturally, it showed no signs of turning green anytime soon. It felt like a full 2 minutes before they finally crossed, and 2 minutes was all it took to reach Shichirigahama Station, where they boarded a train from Kamakura bound for Fujisawa. A four-car train with a retro-styled green and cream exterior. It was a Sunday, so the train was packed with college groups and young couples. There was barely any room to stand. I had graduated from Minagahara High earlier that day, so this was her final ride home from school. She seemed disinclined to savor the moment, but the way she gazed at the ocean through the windows made it clear she didn't care how much or how packed the train was. Sakata and Mai barely spoke on the 15-minute ride to the end of the line, Fujisawa Station. As they stepped off, Mai said that was the last time, a bit wistfully. She'd ridden that train daily for 3 whole years, and she could always ride it again, if she chose to, as long as she lived in Fujisawa. It was easy enough, but she would likely never ride it as frequently as she had been, because she's going to school. At least was going to school. That was part of the whole graduation thing. Some things changed without you knowing it, and others didn't but felt like they did. It all came down to how you perceived. I'd better feast my eyes on you in uniform while I still can. You're not that into school uniforms, though. What matters is what's inside. But if this really was the last time, that did feel like a shame. You can ask, but I'm never putting it on for you. If I'm asking, it'll be the bunny girl outfit. As they chatted, they followed the flood of people out of the gates and across the bridge to the JR station. Kamakura lay to the east of Fujisawa and Chikisaki. To the west, that meant Fujisawa Station housed not only the Inoden, but the Tokaido line and the Odakyu Enoshima line. A substantial portion of this crowd was here changing lines. All right, Sakata and Mai came in the JR Fujisawa Station's southern doors and went right past the gates and out the north side. They walked through the electronics store to the supermarket. Sakata pushed the cart around, following Mai's lead. He picked up ingredients and dropped them into the cart. The good beef, sausage, fresh veggies, and a range of seafood, tuna, salmon, squid, and octopus. What you making, Mai? In honor of her graduation, they were eating at his place. Still a secret, she said with a hint of glee. Their shopping date was a delight. Once they'd paid, he'd carried the bulk of the bags. Dang it, I can't read. And they made their way home. The farther from the station they got, the less foot traffic there was. Big box stores gave way to mom and pop shops, and then those gave way to residential buildings. Oh right, Mai, Sakata began. Yes. He'd been trying to work up the courage to ask, when'd you make up with your mom? That's my question too. I was wondering, like, why is this situation happening when they make up? How did it even happen? Stuff. Yeah, I thought it would have been like more of a big thing that was kind of highlighted earlier. Um, where? Oh, sorry, I got sidetracked. Right, from what he knew, this was not a rift that could be easily healed. My exact thing that I just said, I thought that it was something that would have been like kind of like a big thing, like not something that was super simple to kind of make up for. Mai did not even like talking about her mother, though he'd been surprised the lady showed up for her graduation. Surprised. Mai had allowed her to attend. I didn't. Mai kept her eyes forward and her tone uninterested. He was lost. I didn't make up with her. Even more lost, but she came to your graduation. I didn't ask her to. Ah, okay. She was getting slightly annoyed. It was like this every time. Mai's hackles went up at every moment. At the very moment that they mentioned her mom. Then why? He asked, turning to look at her. Mai noticed and briefly glanced his way, then dodged his gaze. When he kept staring, she sighed and begrudgingly explained, I went to Kyoto for that shoot last month. Yeah, mid-February. It was what forced them to spend their first Valentine's Day apart. He remembered not getting chocolate very well. There was a child actress there from her agency, still not calling her mom. So your mom came to Kyoto with the kid, he surmised. I nodded wordlessly. Said the girl was a fan of mine, brought her to my dressing room, her lips pursed, irritated. She was reliving the emotions of that moment. I couldn't fight with her in front of a kid, and she got the graduation date out of me. Okay, okay. And that's why she showed up. Yeah. Although honestly, I assumed she'd be too busy to make it. That sure backfired, Mai added, half smiling. He'd never seen that look on her face when talking about her mother before, despite her protests. She was clearly a bit more at ease enough to laugh at her own failings, which made Sakata want to pry further. Do you still have it in for her, Mai? Absolutely, she snapped. Didn't have to think about it, didn't hesitate at all, but it didn't seem like she was being stubborn or sticking to her guns. Just saying how she felt in so many words, still her anger felt a lot more subdued. That photo album in junior high, I said I wasn't doing any swimsuits. But she booked a shoot anyway. I'm not letting her off the hook for that. Ever. Definitely, rightfully so. She can't get off that easy. To Mai, that was a simple statement of fact. Not easily forgiven, time did not heal this wound, nor did it make that woman any less Mai's mom. And because she was Mai's mom, that pain wouldn't fade so soon. It was that kind of wound. Just a lot happened in the last year. I glanced at him, then a hint of warmth in her gaze. Sakata felt like he knew what she meant, but he wanted her to say it, in her own words. He was no actor, but he did his best to pretend like he didn't understand. She saw through the act right away, but let him win. My bout of adolescent syndrome, meeting you and Shoko, she sure put us through a lot, but the upshot is that I figured out what really matters. Her voice got real quiet toward the end, but he heard it all. She meant these words for his ears alone. My gripe with her didn't go away, but I have more things that matter, and surrounded by all that, well, it feels just less real. The emotions less intense. That sounds about right. I struggled a little looking for the right words, but by the end, she'd clearly found them. It all made sense to him, and what she'd said helped him figure something out. Emotions don't exist in isolation. One good thing that can make you not care so much about whatever you've been hung up on, no matter how much something rankles, it only takes one blessing to make forgiveness possible. Like Mai said, other things were important to her now. Mai might not have realized it, but this was an admission that her vendetta against her mother also mattered, and for a while it had been all that mattered. Also, she began, then cut herself short. Yes, he said, looking at her. She gave him a long look as she thought it over. The little girl I met in Kyoto, she was just like me. How so? Her father left home a few years back, leaving her and her mother, and I wound up talking to the kid's mother a bit on break. Uh, and she said, without a father, we're not exactly a standard family, and I act like she's so special, so she doesn't ever feel like she's worse off because of that. Huh? He wasn't really sure how to take that. She also said that I was their role model, the one that they admired the most, and that sure shut me up. Maya Sakurajima's grasp on the number one actress you wish you were. Wait, what? She said, Maya Sakurajima's grasp on the number one actress you wish you were your daughter. Throne had lasted years, especially for any families in that child actress game. For stage moms, Mai was the ultimate success story. She was special, and he got why a mom would want their kid to be that kind of special. Doting on your kids was just what parents did. After hearing their stories and watching the kid try to meet her mother's expectations, well, I just didn't have it in me to criticize her mother. They seemed really so close, really working together to achieve her goals. Were you like that once? She neither confirmed nor denied. I don't really remember, she said at length. I was just so busy, my head spinning, constantly dizzy. Every day I was memorizing lines, rehearsing, filming, being driven from place to place, then having her help me prep for the next day's work, day after day. Sleeping in the car, on the way, naps in the dressing room, on breaks, weeks on end, in hotels, never seeing our own home. Yeah, that's gotta be rough. And she was there with you every step of the way. Your mom's something else. I could sleep in the car, but her mother was obviously driving. When had she slept? I could nap in the break room, but her mother was there as her manager and couldn't exactly just lie down and close her eyes. Um, but voicing this opinion earned him a glare. Whose side are you on? Yours, of course. Fine, we're done talking about this. What's going on, Eggman? How's it going, man? Hope things are well. Yeah, just running through the Bunny Girl Senpai ninth light novel because it's been a while and I still have yet to read it. And we're a good, well, not a good chunk through. We're kind of like in the beginning portions of it, but still, we're moving along. It's been pretty interesting so far. I bet I had to drink some water. I've been doing a lot of talking, so or a lot of reading. Okay, where did I leave off? Okay, yeah, they're having this little spat. All right, fine, we're done talking about this. He picked up the pace, going on ahead. He scrambled to keep up, not looking at him. She added, I didn't think I was ready to get it. Get what? Why a mother would want her daughter to be special. Apparently Mai was only done talking about her relationship with her own mother. The topic at large was still going strong. My father said I'd figure out how parents feel when I had kids myself, Sakata said. And he'd probably meant it wasn't possible until that happened. Maybe he's right. But back to the point, I still hate her. But for the sake of the future, I'd also like to try to fix that. What future is this? If I'm gonna have a family of my own, I need to know how to be a family, Mai said, blushing a bit. In my mind, you'll be the best wife ever, so I'm pretty sure we're gonna be just fine. At least Mai Sakurajima's like grown up to understand that, you know? She's not like super bitter to the point where she's just like, I'm never gonna talk to her ever again, and just like so turned off at the subject. And she's at least open to trying to work things out and trying to, you know, help herself see the good sides of stuff and to learn and everything. I like that a lot. All right, so let's hope. Oh, not even scolding me for picturing us as newlyweds? I'm saving that for if you imagine yourself with anyone else. She took a few dance-like steps and spun around to face him. They'd reached the street between the respective buildings. Mai? Yes? Can you hold these for a sec? He hefted the grocery bags, but we're home. I want to give you a hug, but I can't with my hands full. This was a natural impulse after seeing someone that adorable or something that adorable. Maya had only to blame herself. I don't want anyone snapping pics for the tabloids. She did an about face and waved the diploma tube over her shoulder. I'll be over around 4. With that, she passed through the doors to her building. She was soon out of sight. No use standing around in the street alone. Takata went inside the building opposite, checked the empty mailbox, and took the elevator to the 5th floor. He unlocked the door and stepped in. I'm home, he called, moving to the living room. Kaede was at the kotatsu with her laptop open. She looked up and said hi. He put the grocery bags in the kitchen and headed to his room to change. He dropped his backpack on the bed and took off his uniform, blazer, trousers, white shirt. He had a t-shirt under that, and he removed it and his socks and leaving him in just his underwear. He turned to the closet to grab some sweats and caught a glimpse of himself in the window, and that was when he noticed something wasn't right. Something that shouldn't be there, and he wasn't imagining it. He turned to the face of the glass window. There he was, resplendent in his undies, with a scar across his stomach like a crack in the pavement, a single claw mark that ran across his right side to his belly button, white and puffy, the scab already gone. What the? But no one could answer his question. He looked down, and the scar was very clearly real. Good on her word. Wait, sorry, I don't know. We're like transitioning to the next part of it. But okay, so now so he's got a different scar. So a scar that's not, the one that like went across his chest that, was kind of like his heart like wound and stuff, what was going on with Shoko because of the whole like him dying, his heart going over to Shoko as like transplant and stuff, keeping her alive and him and ending up passing away in the Dreaming Girl movie. Um Now he's got a different scar. It looks like that's kind of like going across his stomach from, like his right side moving across towards like the middle area, which is interesting. Um I I don't know, that's kind of strange. I hope they don't try to like do the same thing, where it's like kind of like repeating a little bit of the same kind of tropes of what they did before, like with the whole like Shoko situation with the scar thing, but we'll see what ends up happening with that. All right. Good on her word, Mai rang the intercom at exactly 4. That's Mai, right? I can answer? Before Sakata could say no, Kaede had hit the button. She went to the door all on her own and brought Mai back to the living room. He should probably have been pleased and his infamously shy sister was opening up, but it just felt like she was stealing his job. Mai, it's so cool you graduated. Thank you, Kaede. Kaede was still a little tense, so Mai was being extra nice. Mai had a large tote bag with her, far too large for someone who was just coming over for dinner. Sleeping over? He asked, figuring a man could dream and saying it might make it come true. Don't be silly, she scoffed. I think it's high time that stopped sounding silly. They started dating last summer. 2 full seasons had passed, and spring was almost here. More than 6 whole months, he said. Shh, Kaede. Kaide's listening, she scolded. Exactly, Sakata, Kaede said with a very cow-like groan. His sister seemed to have a thing for black and white animals. I brought some study guides to help you with your exam, Sakata. Mai had pulled a bundle of books out of her bag and forced them into his hands. He wasn't about to argue. He made it a rule to accept any and all presents from Mai. Also this. And that dude needs to get studying, and he has been, as like if people have read the Eighth Light novel, that dude's been studying pretty hard ever since he's been trying to make it a reality to go to the same university as Mai. I can't remember the name of the actual university that he was trying to get into. I think it was a Yokohama. I can't remember, but I remember it's pretty sure it's Yokohama. It might be something else, but I know that he's been trying pretty hard to get into that school and making use of the tons and tons of study guides and books that Mai's been giving him since. But yeah, hopefully that comes to fruition and helps. She took out a plastic DVD case, the word kokone or kokonoe around down the spine. This was Mai Sakurajima's debut role, the morning soap that made her a superstar. On screen, 6-year-old Mai was sobbing her eyes out, the wails racking her body as she ran and tumbled, pouring her soul into the emotion of the scene. Kaede clearly couldn't take her eyes off of it. Excuse me. At first she'd been going, Mai, you're amazing, and you were so cute. But before long, the story and performances held all her attention, robbing her of her ability to speak. She was fully focused on the screen, unaware of her jaw, unaware her jaw was hanging open. Kaede laughed and cried with every character. That's crazy. Yeah, I could only imagine like knowing somebody that was like in actual like show business or something like that, or just like an actress or whatever, and just watching them on TV. That'd be pretty crazy. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, how can you be that? I don't know, act like that. You know, how could you put on a character like so fluidly and just kind of, I don't know, your emotions just be so raw and like I don't know. It for me, I'm like that's crazy. Um, I remember at one point I wanted to go into acting at one point, but I never ended up doing it. But it was always something that I kind of wanted to do, at least at some point. Yeah. All right. Where are we at? Oh yeah, right here. So she'd only been three. She'd only been 3 when this had aired and hadn't seen any of it. Nakata himself only remembered a scene or two. He had no memories of watching it back in the day, so he'd likely seen highlights in montages of her work or the like. Nakata, give me a hand. He turned to look and found Mai wearing an apron, waving him into the kitchen. He left the TV and went to help her get dinner ready. This was nominally a graduation party, so it wasn't fair to make the guest of honor do all the work. Score these, she said, handing him the package of sausages. He took a knife and scored each wiener 3 times so they wouldn't split while cooking. Well, Mai asked, glancing at the screen. I think I think you're far cuter now. I know that, she said, stepping lightly on his foot. That meant, be serious. She hadn't brought over the DVD so he could compare and contrast. She'd brought it over because of the girl he'd met on the beach at Shichirigahama. They look alike, identical. He'd known that beyond all doubt that the moment the video started, the moment he'd seen the pictures on the cover, young Mai looked just like the girl with the knapsack. Oh, but like, that's what makes it weird. Weird how? They're too similar, like down to the way that they talk. This had taken him a while to pick up on, but the more he watched, the more the similarities stood out. Little Mai was definitely Mai, but since she was acting in a sense, it wasn't her. This wasn't the real Mai, but the one playing a role. Ah, okay. So even if she looked the same, the part she was playing should create discrepancies, gestures, and word choices, signs that they had different personalities, and yet he couldn't find nothing out of place. I feel like the girl I met was you on TV. That was the best way he could put it. That makes even less sense, Mai said, an onion in one hand. She had a point. It didn't really clarify much of anything, possibly even deepen the mystery. Wait, is that all? Kaide asked. The DVD playback had stopped and it had returned to the menu. Mai, do you have the rest? Kaide's like, I'm about to binge the hell out of this right now. If you got the rest of them. The story itself was unfinished. Kaide turned back, eager to see the rest. Sorry, I only had the first volume on hand. I bet Nadaka has the rest. Ah, of course. The Siscon idol would. I'll have to ask her then, Kaide said, carefully putting the disc back in the case. Shame she couldn't make it today. Nadaka had been hell-bent on coming, but it had overlapped with the Sweet Bullet tour. She was likely on stage somewhere in Niigata now. Blonde hair flouncing as fans screamed, Doka! You're getting pretty tight with her, Kaede. She's been pretty, yeah, she has been pretty close with Nadaka since Kaide's kind of been coming into her own and stuff and not trying to be less shy and everything. She's been with her a lot. And, they've been visiting a whole bunch with Nadaka joining there. She helped me study a lot when, oh wait, hold on. Getting pretty tight with her, Kaide, Mai said, smiling. She seemed happy to see Kaide getting back what she'd lost, or maybe just glad their little sisters were friends. She helped me study a lot when I was figuring out my high school plans. It had been a huge help. Nadaka's hair and flashy makeup belied a big brain, and not only were her grades good, but she was good at teaching. She'd helped Kaede through a lot, and it was only natural they'd bonded. As these thoughts ran through Sakata's head, Kaede came into the kitchen calling his name. What? I want to help too. Then slice these onions for me, Mai said. Okay. I wanted to help Mai. Sakata, when you're done with that, rinse the rice. Sadly, his faint hope was soon dashed. Following Mai's instructions, Sakata and Kaede got the spread ready for roll your own sushi night. But not just any old sushi. They had a hot plate in the center of the table and were frying meat and sausages on it, which they could then add to the rolls they made. This was why Mai had brought a variety of seafood and veggies too. Yo, what's going on, Kartik? How you doing, my dude? Yeah, I'm sorry I'm doing this at such a crazy, I guess inconvenient time for you guys. Ishan was just telling me earlier too that it was like almost 4 in the morning for him. Yeah, because of time zone differences and everything. For me right now it's like 4:30 p.m., so it's like middle of the day, like almost evening time. So this was, I guess, ideal time, I guess, for myself. But yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, hope everything's well, my dude. But yeah, we're running through the Rascal Does Not Dream of a Knapsack Kid, Volume 9 read through and stuff. Since I still haven't read it, I wanted to jump into it today and just kind of get started. We're still kind of in the beginning portions of the story, but moving along pretty nicely. It's been pretty interesting. Definitely wondering what the heck is. I want to get some answers for sure as to what's going on. Um, but all this talk of food right here in the midst of this little passage is getting me really hungry. All right. So it said they had a hot plate in the center of the table and were frying meat and sausages on it, which they could then add to the rolls they made. This was why Mai had brought a variety of seafood and veggies too. Conversation stayed lively as the trio boasted about the successful rolls they'd created before they knew it, they'd eaten everything. After dinner, they relaxed with some tea, talking, watching TV, comparing the real Mai with the one in her commercials. Sakata took care of the dishes while Mai was playing with Nasuno. By then, it was 9, and he hit the switch on the bath like always. When it was full, Kaede took her turn, and Sakata and Mai were finally alone together, but not exactly in the mood to sit on his bed. They were in his room, seated on opposite sides of a low folding table. On the table was a notebook filled with English vocabulary and Sakata's handwriting. Mai was going over it with a red pen. She'd given him a pop quiz to make sure he was hitting his daily memorization quota. She said, your room like it meant something, and this was what he got for hoping. And the results, well, his efforts had paid off, and he'd gotten 90% right. Not bad. He'd been studying on his breaks at work and school, and during the commute itself, Mai would likely say something nice soon. But when she finished grading, she didn't look pleased. Acceptable, she said, somehow making that seem disappointed. And what score would I need to earn your approval? Best he had a clear target. 100%. Not really feasible. She was like, that's not good enough. Yeah. All right. He said, "Aw, remembering these should be a given. This is basic vocabulary." She was clearly just stating the obvious. No room to argue. Mai was strict with herself and others, but Sakata knew she tended to go easy on him. Sometimes, maybe a bit too much. I know Kaide was a big distraction, and you clearly didn't let that disrupt your own studies. The stick was followed by a carrot. So I suppose you've earned some sort of reward. I have? He half rose from his seat, super excited, I'm assuming. You have something in mind? She asked. Actually, first, there's something you should see. This was important, and he was on his feet anyway, so he quickly shed his sweatshirt, naked from the waist up, in the blink of an eye. Why? Wait, what he said? He said, "Why I only said some." Mai turned her eyes away and her face red, but she kept glancing back at him, and she soon noticed the mark on his side. Oh, okay, yeah, he wanted to show her the mark, the little scar that he has, his new one that he's got there. Genuine surprise. What? What's that? She asked, growing very serious. The pale, puffy scar across Sakata's side was certainly alarming. No clue, he said. Since when? Oh, my bad, Kartik. I didn't see your message. Yeah, any big parts? Um, just a little bit of setup stuff so far. Pretty much, it kind of seems like right now it's kind of aiming towards the little Mai that they've seen is Mai Sakurajima, like the actress of the little Mai Sakurajima back in the day. So not like her actual personality herself, but like Sakata said that the way that the way that he saw her on the beach and was interacting with her, she was acting the way her character would act in the show and stuff, and like in her roles and everything, which is a little bit weird. I'm not sure if he means like in that particular show that Mai like brought over and showed them, or if he means like just her in general. But I'm assuming she had multiple different shows or multiple different movies and like roles and everything. So I assume they wouldn't all act the same. I'm a little confused on that. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. But that's really about it so far. It's yeah, still trying to move through things. I believe. Oh yeah, Mai Sakurajima's mom is back. They ended up Sakata and Mai Sakurajima's mom ended up actually, having a conversation and actually ended up meeting properly this time around. Which I was saying, like, I was wondering when that was gonna happen or wondering when she was gonna come back into the story. But yeah, like that's about the big things that kind of have happened so far. I'm not sure if you read the Eighth Light novel, but of course, like Mai graduated from high school, so this is like post graduation that they're kind of celebrating right now. Having some food and stuff at Sakata's house because of that. Yeah, but that's pretty much all that's happened so far. But yeah, let me jump back onto this. Where was I? So it wasn't there when I got dressed. Oh yeah, he said it wasn't there when I got dressed this morning. Found it when I got home and changed out of my uniform. I got to her feet and came around the table. Let me see, she said. Her fingers ran along the length of the scar, brushing his skin. No strange noises this time. I only just realized it myself, but I can't actually feel you touching it. How about now? She rubbed a little harder, but he couldn't feel a thing. So it's like numb, like he can't feel anything. Here I finally get you to touch me, and I can't even tell. Don't make it weird. I'd really prefer to feel your touch than not. She made a face and pulled her hand away. Does this have anything to do with the mini me from the beach? Sakata couldn't see any connection, so he couldn't really say for sure. But when two weird things happen in a rapid succession, it's natural to suspect there is some sort of link. The timing did not seem coincidental. I picked up his sweatshirt and handed it to him. Put this on before you catch a cold, she said. He did as he was told and sat back down on the cushion. Their eyes met. He caught a glimpse of unease. I'm sure it'll be fine, based on, Mai asked, settling down across from him, not looking not looking away. He could feel her concern. Yeah, anybody would be concerned because after what happened in the Dreaming Girl movie, with the stuff that was going on with Shoko, with what was brought to light there, with him dying and, Shoko telling him like, hey, you're gonna pass away because this thing happens or whatever, and that was directly linked to the scar that he had. I could only, she's justified with that concern there, she's probably like, holy shit, like I don't want him to die again. What the hell is gonna happen? What does this mean? And yeah, freaking out, I'm assuming. All right, so no matter, he could feel her concern. No matter what happens, I have you, he said, holding her gaze. You're all I need, Mai. Oh, right, she said, smiling sheepishly, but then, watching his face closely, she added, and Shoko's no longer around. That was just that was just mean. It was very her to not let him control the conversation. She knew full well he was just trying to butter her up so she'd go easy on him, and she knew just how to counter him. When he failed to respond, she grinned like she'd won, but then she said, "That reminds me," and reached for her tote bag. She pulled out a script. "Another new shoot?" he asked, or he braced himself for bad news, but instead, she pulled a scrap of paper out from between the pages and put the script itself back in her bag. "This is for you," she said, sliding the scrap across the table. "What is it?" It looked like notebook paper, folded in half, for good luck, like a charm. Yep. She was blushing slightly, but no explanation was forthcoming. Had she drawn on her charm? Puzzled, he unfolded the scrap of paper. It was an official form, with boxes for names at the top, and above that it said, "Marriage application." No way. What the fuck? There's no way. Okay, so, oh, damn. That's out of nowhere. I didn't think that she'd do that. I mean, I'm assuming she's not like fucking saying, like proposing or anything, but that's kind of wild that she brought that up. I know she loves the dude, but I don't know. I'm just like, I think that's crazy that she kind of pulled that out like that. Yeah. He says it took him a moment, but this was clearly not the standard form. The margins were varying shades of blue, and at the bottom of the page was the illustration of a yacht floating off the coast of Enoshima. I was on a daytime panel show, and they had a segment on area-specific marriage applications, I said, talking rather fast. If Enoshima was on it, this must have been the Fujisawa version. They gave me a copy, mostly joking around, knowing I live here. "It'll come in handy when you and that boyfriend tie the knot," they said. She made it sound like this was Sakata's fault, a hint of sulky child on her face that was usually a sign she was trying to hide her embarrassment. In other words, I didn't go to the license bureau and pick it up myself or anything. That was clearly an important point. My? Yes, she said, instantly very guarded. You didn't put your name on it. A lovely form, sadly blank. I think that would double its effectiveness as a charm, he insisted. "Just my name," she whispered, and she snatched the form away from him. He turned it toward her and wrote "My Sakurajima" on the bride's side. Flawless handwriting. Sakata watched closely, and she squirmed like his gaze was tickling her. Then the form came back his way. "Satisfied now?" "My birthday's next month, the 10th, April 10th. Just over a month away." "I know. Oh, did I mention?" I asked Kaede. That this was slightly pointed. Sakata had not known when Mai's birthday was, and she wasn't making the simple mistake or the same mistake. He pretended not to notice that dig, picking up the ballpoint pen and writing Sakata Azusagawa on the husband's side. Couldn't remember ever writing his name so carefully in all his life. Which means I'm almost 18. Yeah, I would too. If you're like writing some document, like over some documents or important ones like that, you'd want to make sure that it's nice and looking good and not all sloppy and whatnot. But crazy the fact that she pulled that out, even at the fact that she didn't go and actually herself go and grab that form or get that form. The fact that she's there, and or I mean the fact that she pulled it out as like, hey, like here's a good luck charm, a marriage application, kind of like pretty heavily hinting at the fact that she does want to eventually get married, and to him, of course. But yeah. All right. Which means I'm almost 18. Make sure to vote then. I can also pay a visit to the license bureau. If you submit this on your own, I will be furious. 18 was the legal marriageable age here. Seems like a small price to pay. Then I'll also break up with you. Aw, I'd rather do it together. She looked up through her lashes at him, hammering the point home. This was far too cute to argue with. "Then you hold on to it," he said, folding the application neatly. "I may not be able to resist, but if I'm holding on to it, it won't bring you luck." Yeah, it doesn't seem like it, or it seems like it's like a different version of it or something like that. Like it's not like maybe not an official one, but he mentioned kind of like it's from Fujisawa instead of like the Enoshima one or something like that. So it's not. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if it's not a real one. I think it is a real one. It's just a different version of one that he's not used to seeing maybe. But yeah, still the thought, if it's not a real one, then I think, the thought is still kind of cute for them. Um, then you hold on to it, he said, folding the application neatly. I may not be able to resist, but if I'm holding on to it, it won't bring you luck. It's a marriage application with our names on it. I think you keeping it on your person at all times is clearly the best use for it. Well, if you insist, but I'm not carrying it around with me. Yeah, I would freaking hate to lose that. It won't benefit either of us that way. Fine, okay, I'll try to keep it close. Mai was clearly back to her usual self. She took out the script again and placed the form carefully between its pages. For now, I'm going to have to talk to Futaba tomorrow about the new scar and the girl on the beach. Yes, that's probably for the best. But first, without getting up, Mai hefted her hips and swung them around the next table or the table, moving her right next to Sakata. I? Show me it again. He didn't waste any time answering. The sweatshirt was gone. Just like pop, like right off. You can just pull it up. But it was already off, so too late to argue. This isn't like the last one, she said, her face right next to his skin. He could feel her breath on his side. It tickled, but if he said anything, she'd move away. He fought off the giggle. The previous scars were more like welts, like cuts that had healed over. This was more like a big scrape that had formed a scab, but the scab had fallen off. Where the previous scars had looked like burns, this one was pale. But with the two of them in his room and Mai this close to him, the scars were of little importance. She was so close that all he had to do was reach out and she'd be in his arms. He had his shirt off, but she'd come right over to him. He could almost feel her warmth in the air. That sweet scent would not leave him alone. Why'd you go quiet? Mai looked up, frowning. Their eyes met, and her long lashes blinked twice. She was cute from a distance, but even cuter this close. This is definitely your fault, Sakata said. I mean, it's just the two of us. She caught his drift and looked evasive. Fair, maybe I shouldn't be winding you up. Mai didn't sound entirely convinced. Mai and Kaide will be out of the bath soon. So, so just a kiss, she said, her eyes turning back to him, Mai's eyes closed. He had one hand on the floor, and he had put his hands on top of it. She shivered, but her hand turned, and their fingers locked with his. He leaned in close, and then the phone rang. The landline outside his door echoing loudly in the room or in the living room. That's for you. Mai's lips moved, but her eyes stayed closed. This is not the time. He tightened his grip on her hand and moved his face closer. Sakata, the phone! Kaide yelled from the changing room. She was obviously out of the bath and could hear it ringing. Can you answer? He shouted back. Ah, she grumbled, but he heard her stomping toward the living room. Finally, all threats handled, or so he thought. Sakata, it's Dad, Kaide yelled. Damn, so my boy just can't catch a break here. By this point, the heat of the moment had long since dissipated. Mai cleared her throat and pulled away. You should get that, she said, clearly a bit disappointed. She held up his sweatshirt. He put it on and headed out to the living room where he found Kaide waving at him. Hurry up! She was only wearing a bath towel, hardly decent. Her hair was still dripping wet. You'll catch a cold like that. And whose fault is that? I know he was like, go get it. And now he's like, you're gonna get a cold. She puffed out her cheeks at him and shoved the phone into his hands. What is it, Dad? As he answered, Kaede hustled off back to the changing room. She was leaving wet spots in her wake. Nasuno walked past, carefully avoiding them. Clever cat, taking care to prevent a secondary disaster. It's about your mom. Oh, the voice on the line sounded tense. Okay, Sakata said, bracing himself. They've given permission for her to recover at home. Oh, shit. Damn. Alright, oh good, she's getting better. Yes, and when I told her about Kaede, she wanted to see her. Mom said that? Like they were talking about anyone else. There'd be no change of subject, but Sakata asked anyway because it had been 2 whole years since those words were even possible. The confirmation was just a reflex now. Oh shit. Damn. Alright, I'll save my thoughts until we get to the end of this little passage right here. But that's pretty I guess kind of expected, but a little nuts at the same time. Um, yeah, he could hear the nod in his father's voice. Oh, he found his eyes turning to the display. It showed his father's cell number. Okay, yeah. Takata felt his eyes on him and looked up. Kaede was in her pajamas now, or felt eyes on him and looked up. Kaede was in her pajamas now, drying her hair with a towel. What's up with Mom? She asked. She'd overheard enough to know who this was about. Her gaze showed a mix of curiosity, doubt, and anxiety. Hold on a sec. Sure. Sorry. Hold on a sec, Dad. Sure. Sakata moved the receiver away from his ear, turning to Kaede. Kaede? What? Mai came out of his room, clearly intrigued. He could see her hovering behind Kaede, but he kept his attention focused on his sister. Do you want to see Mom? Her eyes went wide. Yes, she said, as if the answer was set in stone. I want to go see her. Kind of surprised that she was so willing. Then she said it one more time, as if double checking how she really felt. I want to see Mom again. She nodded to herself, and Sakata put the phone back to his ear. Dad, I heard. There were tears in his father's voice, but Sakata wasn't about to point that out. Okay, he said. That was all they needed now. Shit. Alright, so we got some interesting stuff that's about to take place here. So Sakata and Kaede's mom is apparently at the point where they're gonna let her be discharged and recover at home. So obviously, I'm assuming there's been progression made on that side, and she's in a good deal of a better space now. And she wants to see Kaede after all the improvements that she's made with herself and everything too. Going to school, or at least wanting to do the online school and everything, and being a little bit more outgoing and not as shy. Still, of course, shy, but not as bad as she was before. Sticking to the house and only the house. So yeah, adolescent syndrome for her is not all the way gone, but still kind of subsided for the most part, I would believe, at least based on what we saw in, or at least read in volume 8. Not completely gone, but still there in some fashion, but a good deal better. But yeah, that's crazy that she's going to be coming back, going to be going home with Sakata and Kaede. I'm definitely interested to see how that's going to play out. Um, yeah, this volume takes place after the movie. Yeah, it does. Yeah, so it's volume 8 happens after the Dreaming Girl movie, and then this is 9, so that happens after volume 8. Um, yeah, so yeah, it's definitely interesting. I want to see what happens with it, just because just seeing the dynamic possibly of like how we're so used to Bunny Girl Senpai just being, when they're at home, just being Sakata and Kaede, and maybe whoever else is with them, like Mai, or maybe like another friend visiting or something. But the fact that her mom is going to be coming back and the dad with her, of course, they're going to have like a family there now, like all of them there, which is going to be so weird. Like if when that gets animated, or just seeing that in general and like reading about it, because that's such a that's such a far thing from what we've seen thus far. So I'm like, damn, how's the dynamic going to be there with them interacting with each other? It's going to definitely be different, but yeah, I want to see what happens with that, how that plays out. Surprised Kaede was so willing to just go out and see her mom. I thought that there was going to be, I mean, I sensed a little bit of hesitancy there, but I thought there was going to be a lot more hesitancy. Like she was going to be kind of like scared to do it. Sure, there was, like I said, a little bit of scaredness in there and hesitancy, but I thought it was going to be a lot more, to the point where she's going to be like, yo, I'm not sure. I don't know if this is a good idea, or how that's going to kind of play out or whatever, but I'm sure, she loves her mom and she's concerned about her and stuff. I know the fact that her mom is in the hospital because of her is kind of like a pain point, or like something very sad and stuff that she's kind of dealing with, or maybe a little bit of frustration or whatever. But yeah, I'm sure that it's going to be good for her, and that she does care about her, and she wants to see her, make up with her, and kind of show her what progress she's made, and hopefully they can make up, and things kind of will get squashed in that regard with them. But yeah, that's pretty crazy that that's going to happen. Sounds like they're going to go see her before she ends up coming back to the house. um yeah, that's pretty cool. That's I didn't think that that was gonna happen this quick. But yeah, it eventually needed to happen. I remember I talked about it before. I'm wondering if that was gonna be what was gonna end up going on in the Eighth Light novel. But it didn't happen then. But hey, it's happening now in the Ninth Light novel, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that's man, there's a good deal of stuff that we went through so far with this. A lot of interesting things happening. Next part, at least seemingly from this beginning of the of next passage, looks like it's going to be Rio Futaba, entering into the mix of things, kind of scolding Sakata and like giving him a hard time and everything. But yeah, that's going to be cool to see and read her kind of side of things. Didn't run into any like colored or not any colored, any pictures or anything so far during this read through. Yeah, so I think this is a good stopping point. I'm gonna stop right now because I have to go get ready for something. I have to go get some food and everything because I'm kind of hungry right now. We ran about, we've been streaming for a little over an hour, so that's a decent amount of time. But yeah, I might stream and do some more of the read through a little bit later because I'm like super invested in this, of course, as I do when I start reading Bunny Girl Senpai. So I wanna know what happens next. I wanna carry off and kind of continue this again. So I might do a stream a little bit later today, maybe in like a few hours or something. Right now it's about to be 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for myself. Um, so I might jump on and do it again, maybe around like 8:30 Mountain Standard Time or like 9 MST Mountain Standard Time. So maybe in about like 3 or 4 hours or something like that. So just be on the lookout for that. I'll try to post it in the Discord or like post it in the community tab, like if I'm like for real gonna stream again later in the day. But man, there's some good reading so far, some good stuff. Definitely like a lot of interesting things are happening. A lot of funny moments and stuff too, a lot of cute moments as were expected. But man, yeah, there's a lot of mystery and a lot of stuff that I'm like, all right, I want to see what happens with the stuff like now. Damn it. But yeah, like I said, I gotta head out in just a sec to go get some food and then take care of some other errands and stuff after that. But yeah, I appreciate everybody that hopped in. Eggman, hope you're doing well and hope you enjoyed some of the stuff that you ended up seeing with the read through and everything. Ishan, I appreciate you for hopping in as well. Kartik, always good to see you, my dude. In the chats and stuff. I was planning to do the card pack opening today, but I guess like I ran out of time. Time kind of flew by a little bit, and it's already about to be 5 p.m. So I won't do that right now. Maybe I could do that a little bit later if I do end up doing the stream later in the day tonight. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Again, appreciate you all for joining, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and maybe catch you later. Like I said, try to keep you